Good morning. Last week we talked about the person and work of Jesus Christ, and I stated that true belief, true Christianity is based upon that, upon a proper, right understanding of the person of Christ and the work of Christ, and there must be both. And then we kind of delved into the person of Christ, and I said there's two aspects to that, the divine nature and the human nature. And those are distinct yet inseparable. And we kind of analyzed both individually, but saw where the God-man is one in two natures. Now today, as we look at the work of Christ, we have that same kind of dynamic in that we have the sinless life of Jesus and the atoning work of the cross. There are two components to the work of Christ that are distinct yet inseparable. When you talk about one, the other just follows it. It's attached. Can be analyzed separately, but never forgotten that one exists with the other. Now, to deny or alter either or both of these components of his work undermines its efficacy and renders it useless or at best insufficient. Same with the person, as we talked about. When you diminish one, you do such harm to the person of Christ. Same with the work of Christ. When you diminish one or both, you do harm to the work that he did. And as we talked about last week, I mentioned that some cults deny the deity of Christ. And though they do not totally deny his existence as a human being, as a prophet, or whatever, a good teacher, they do harm to the God-man in that they eliminate the deity of Christ and render everything about him and everything he did becomes perverted and altered because of that. And I mentioned that they should be considered a mission field. We should not view them as Christian, we should view them as a mission field. So when they come to your door, you share the gospel with them. You pray for them. Don't pray with them, pray for them. And I'm being serious, it's out of love, it's out of concern for their souls. Now, on the other side of things, with the work of Christ, there's a major denomination that has 1.2 billion people that deny the work of Christ and its sufficiency and feel that it must be added to. All the world religions, ultimately, when you boil them down, outside of Orthodox Christianity, are works-based religions. It's all about merit. It's all about what we do to earn credit and merit before God's eyes. And I don't bring this up to be hurtful. I don't bring it up to take a gratuitous shot at another denomination or anything like that. I have family and friends that are in it. And we should be concerned for their souls and share the gospel with them. The re-sacrificing of Christ, the salvation earned through works, through sacraments being done, a little bit of grace being added, as if what it does is it renders Christ's work insufficient, as I said in the intro, at the beginning of the intro, and that is not good. To take what the God-man did and diminish his work and say we have to bring something to it and add to it. You alter his work, you alter the gospel. And as it says in Galatians, when you're talking about the gospel, you cannot alter the gospel. Galatians chapter 1, verses 6 through 9 says, I am amazed that you are so quickly deserting him who called you by the grace of Christ for a different gospel, which is really not another. Only there are some who are disturbing you and want to distort the gospel of Christ. But even if we or an angel from heaven should preach to you a gospel contrary to what we have preached to you, he is to be accursed. As we have said before, so I say again, if any man is preaching to you a gospel contrary to what you received, he is to be accursed. And we see in Ephesians chapter 2, for by grace you have been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God, not as a result of works, so that no one may boast. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand so that we would walk in them. So we see a distortion of the gospel does harm to our Lord and Savior. To think that we can add something to his work does harm to our Lord and Savior. Now, he'll be all right. I don't mean it like we're changing him in any way, but I'm saying it diminishes his work, it diminishes his nature, his character when we do these things. So if you would, join me in prayer and then we'll read the passage. Holy Father, I thank you for this opportunity to proclaim your word. I thank you for this church and its members and guests, and just pray that through this time here this morning that your name and your work be glorified, and that we see many aspects of your work as we go through the passage, your supremacy, your sovereignty, your sacrifice, your sinlessness, your death, burial, resurrection, ascension, exaltation. There are so many aspects to your work and to your nature that we can spend lifetimes trying to delve into. But I pray that as we read through the passage today and we talk about each and every verse, that these things are brought to light, brought to the forefront, and that you are given the glory you so deserve as the Son of God and our Lord and Savior. And it's in Jesus' name that I pray.
Amen.
Now, if you would join me in the book of Isaiah, chapter 52, verse 13 is the beginning, and we will read through to 50 through 12, the end of chapter 53. Now, as y'all know, the chapter designations and verse designations are man-made, they're not inspired. So really, this tail end of 52 should be part of 53 in reality. And it's kind of an overview by God of the work of Christ, 13 through 15 at the tail end of 52. Now, Isaiah chapter 52, the tail end of 53, by many are considered to be the first gospel, not Matthew. It actually is such a clear presentation of the work of Christ that it's unbelievable. And it was written 700 years before his birth. So if you would follow along with me as I read the whole passage. Behold, my servant will prosper. He will be high and lifted up and greatly exalted. Just as many were astonished at you, my people, so his appearance was marred more than any man, and his form more than the sons of men. Thus he will sprinkle many nations. Kings will shut their mouths on account of him. For what had not been told them they will see, and what they had not heard they will understand. Who has believed our message, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? For he grew up before him like a tender shoot, and like a root out of parched ground. He has no stately form or majesty that we should look upon him, nor appearance that we should be attracted to him. He was despised and forsaken of men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief, and like one from whom men hide their face. He was despised, and we did not esteem him. Surely our griefs he himself bore, and our sorrows he carried. Yet we ourselves esteemed him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. But he was pierced through for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. The chastening for our well-being fell upon him, and by his scourging we are healed. All of us like sheep have gone astray, each of us has turned to his own way. But the Lord has caused the iniquity of us all to fall on him. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. Like a lamb that is led to slaughter, and like a sheep that is silent before its shearers, so he did not open his mouth. By oppression and judgment he was taken away. And as for his generation, who considered that he was cut off out of the land of the living, for the transgression of my people to whom the stroke was due. His grave was assigned with wicked men, yet he was with a rich man in his death. Because he had done no violence, nor was there any deceit in his mouth. But the Lord was pleased to crush him, putting him to grief, if he would render himself as a guilt offering. He will see his offspring, he will prolong his days, and the good pleasure of the Lord will prosper in his hand. As a result of the anguish of his soul, he will see it and be satisfied. By his knowledge, the righteous one, my servant, will justify the many, as he will bear their iniquities. Therefore I will allot him a portion with the great, and he will divide the booty with the strong, because he poured out himself to death and was numbered with the transgressors. Yet he himself bore the sin of many and interceded for the transgressors. There's a lot there. 3-part deal. He actually did it at his own church in a 10-part deal. So we will be much shallower than he got for a couple of reasons. Obviously, I'm not John MacArthur, and we don't have 10 sessions. Now, as I said, the first 3 verses are kind of an overview. And if you notice, the pronoun my servant, my people, this is God speaking about Christ. It's talking about his exaltation to begin with, where he says, my servant will prosper, he will be high and lifted up and greatly exalted. But then it transitions to just as many were astonished at you, my people, so his appearance was marred more than any man, and his form more than the sons of men. It was through that obedient work of the cross, where he was exalted as the God-man. We spoke about that last week. He left this place of glory in heaven, came down, did the work of the cross, the sinless life and the work of the cross, and reascended to heaven as the God-man. And that's the exaltation being spoken of there. And it's due to that work that he is now enthroned as the God-man. Now, Jerry did a beautiful job in the prayer. He mentioned this part. He mentioned various parts of this passage. Verse 14 is just brutal. It's hard to read. It's hard to read without tearing up. To know what he went through in the physical sense. And Matthew 26 and 27 really describe what took place. And it's horrific what he went through in the physical sense. And it's Matthew 26, 67 and 68, and 27, 26 through 31 that I'll be reading from. Then they spat in his face and beat him with their fist, and others slapped him and said, prophesy to us, you Christ, who is the one who hit you? Mocking, beating, slapping, spitting, just sheer brutality. And then in 27 verses 26 through 31, then he released Barabbas for them, but after having Jesus scourged, he handed him over to be crucified. Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the praetorium and gathered the whole Roman cohort around him. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, and after twisting together a crown of thorns, they put it on his head and reed in his right hand, and they knelt down before him and mocked him, saying, Hail, King of the Jews! They spat on him and took the reed and began to beat him on the head. After they had mocked him, they took the scarlet robe off him and put his own garments back on him and led him away to crucify him. So you see the physical brutality, the mocking, it's just horrific. And he was beaten so badly that he was unrecognizable as a human. You see, it says his form more than the sons of men. I mean, not just facially beaten, but his body, the whip with bones on the end, or pieces of metal to tear the flesh. And it's because of this work that the next verse, as I said, this verse is sandwiched between the exaltation, and then it says in verse 15, thus he will sprinkle many nations. Kings will shut their mouths on account of him. For what had not been told them they will see, and what they had not heard they will understand. See, now the gospel can go international. It goes to all the nations. Israel was the chosen nation, and now it has an international aspect to it. It's not that Gentiles were not saved prior to this. There were, Rahab is one example, but now it's openly declared to all the nations. So there's that aspect to it. But there's also, and with a lot of Old Testament prophecies, there's kind of a twofold aspect to them in the prophecy. It's one of the best descriptions I've ever heard is like looking at a mountain range off in the distance. You see the mountains, and can't get my arms up because I'm a coat, from a distance, and it looks like they're just right on top of each other. But as you approach the first mountain, you realize this mountain's way, way, way from the first one. But they look like they're like that. A lot of Old Testament prophecies have that same element to them in the first coming of Christ and the second. So there are dual aspects to a lot of the Old Testament prophecies. So in some senses, the gospel does go out to the nations after the first coming of Christ, but there's also the kings shutting their mouths. It's the complete control of Christ, the reign of Christ, his complete dominance over as we read last year, in supremacy and sovereignty over the entire universe. That's all of creation, and that includes all the nations of the world. And then it's interesting, it says, for what had not been told them they will see, and what they had not heard they will understand. See, the Gentile world had no Old Testament scriptures to see the Messiah coming. Israel did. And that's where it transitions over into chapter 53, who has believed our message, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed. It's kind of a dynamic that Israel saw him coming, or should have seen him coming, should have seen him and recognized him when he did come. He fulfilled every aspect of what had been told of him. He would be God, he would be man, he would be born in Bethlehem. He fit all of it, born of a virgin. They saw that he fit every category, and yet they still denied him. And there's also the idea that to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed. Not only did Israel not see it, but as the gospel has spread around the world throughout the centuries, a very small percentage actually do become true Christians. It's a great growth, a great spread of the gospel, but at the same time, when you take into account how many people have been born and died, and how many actually become Christians, it's a remnant, as it says so often in the Bible. Now, in chapter 53, when we get to verse 1 and go through verse 11, you'll notice the pronouns change. Now, it transfers from my, being God speaking, to now it's we, us, our. This is, as I said, there's a duality to a lot of Old Testament passages, scriptures, and prophecy. Some of this is still future, in that there is Israel's repentance over what they did to the Messiah. They will come to faith and repent of what they did to their Messiah. And that is yet to happen as a nation. Now, some Jews have been saved, of course, on an individual basis, but as a nation. And this is really covered in Zechariah. And I have that in my notes to be read, but I see that time is passing away here, so I won't read that passage. But you see their repentance as a nation, and only 1/3 of them, according to the scripture, will actually repent, but that is the national repentance. But also, these same penitent aspects to this whole passage apply to us as individuals. When we do turn and place our faith and trust in Christ, we recognize these parts of his work, and these are the same penitent views we should have as believers. So that it applies to us as we read it. This has happened for us as true believers. Verse 2 says, he grew up before him like a tender shoot. It speaks to his weak, frail, vulnerable state as a human. But it also says, you notice it's capital H, he, talking about Christ, grew up before capital H, him, God the Father. He was always under God's providential care and protection. But yet he grew up in a very weak, vulnerable state, taking on flesh and blood, as we focused in on last week with his human nature. And like a root out of parched ground, lowly in status, lowly in condition. He was born in a town that was considered nothing. He was born in a low-class, carpenter's son. Just nothing about him had any majesty or royal nature to it. And this also, as Jerry prayed, talking about his appearance, and this is very important. He has no stately form, nor appearance that we should look upon, or majesty, nor appearance that we should be attracted to. There was nothing about him in the physical sense that said, I am the God-man, I am God, I am the Son of God, I am the Messiah. When you looked at him, nothing said that. We know that because the Bible is very, very vague on what he looked like. There was really no physical description of him other than here saying he had no stately form and we would not be attracted to him. And then there's a passage, the woman at the well recognized him as a Jew because he was a Jew. He looked like a common, everyday Jew in the physical sense. Now, we've been tainted by what we've seen. A lot of European paintings of Christ, and that's wrong. Vodi Baca, I just love his preaching. He's got a sermon. It's called The Modern Sissified Jesus, and he said that the modern church, due to these paintings, has this wrong view of Christ. And unfortunately, when you say Jesus Christ, it's kind of what pops in your head. The pale, weak, long hair, good-looking, blue-eyed guy. And that's a complete wrong view. We know being a carpenter in that day, the mode of transportation being on foot, he would have had a more strong look about him, I'm sure. Definitely a darker complexion. Probably didn't even have long hair. Long hair was not the conventional hairdo for a man in his time. And we do know people who took Nazarite vows and let their hair grow. How would you even know that they were under a Nazarite vow if everybody was running around with long hair? And Bodie said these paintings have him portrayed as a European metrosexual shampoo model with hands that have never seen a hard day's work and feet that have never walked a mile. And that, unfortunately, is what we see when the name Jesus Christ comes up. But these paintings and these images of Christ, they're a violation of the second commandment. And even our Westminster Larger Catechism says, what is forbidden in the second commandment? And part of the answer is the making any representation of God, of all or of any of the three persons, either inwardly in our mind or outwardly in any kind of image or likeness of any creature whatsoever. As I said, that's the image that's kind of burned in my brain, and I'm sure y'all are in the same boat with me. It's probably a little too late for us in that regard, but the reason I bring it up, and it's a little bit of a sidetrack deal, but we can stop that and not pass that along to our children and grandchildren, because we don't need that image tainting our view of our Lord. Now, the next couple verses, 3 and 4, I've kind of put the heading of scorn and shame on. You see in verse 3 and 4, he was despised, forsaken of men, a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief, like one from whom men hide their face. You see, they hate him. They hate Christ. He's one they hide their face from. They're ashamed of him. If he is their Messiah, if he's claiming to be their Messiah, he's certainly not what they were looking for. So they have shame in him that he's weak and going to the cross, not taking on the Romans. Y'all have heard that a bunch of times. But their perception of their Messiah was so askew. It says that he was despised and we did not esteem him. At the end of 4, we ourselves esteemed him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted, as if he deserved what he was getting. He deserved the crucifixion. But you do see a hint in the beginning of verse 4. Surely our griefs he himself bore, and our sorrows he carried. You see a little bit of recognition there. As I said, this is a repentant Israel looking back at what they did to their Messiah, and us looking back at how we viewed him prior to our regeneration. And then in 5, but he was pierced through for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The chastening for our well-being fell upon him, and by his scourging we are healed. This is a beautiful thing. It's a gruesome thing, but a beautiful thing from our perspective. What's interesting about this little verse here, to me, is that you see what man did to him. Of course, it's all ordained by God. But you see the physical act of piercing him by man. And why was that? Because of our transgressions. It's our fault. He was crushed for our iniquities. That speaks more to what God's doing to him. God's wrath falling upon him. But yet, it's for our iniquities. Again, our fault. But then it transitions. The chastening for our well-being. Now you see our benefit coming from what he's going through in his work. And his scourging, again, man whipping him. But we are healed. We see our benefit. So we're the cause, but we're also the beneficiaries. And verse 6 says, all of us like sheep have gone astray. Each of us has turned to his own way, but the Lord has caused the iniquity of us all to fall on him. See the analogy of sheep being used for lost sinners, blemished lost sinners, without a shepherd, just going astray, wandering aimlessly. yet our iniquity falls on him. And you see that same language being used of him in 7, like a lamb that is led to slaughter. He is the unblemished lamb who takes our place. He is the Christian Passover. We see his substitution. We see our salvation in what he did. We see the silent, sinless submission in what he did. As it says, he did not open his mouth. Like a lamb that is led to slaughter, yet he did not open his mouth. Like a sheep that is silent before its shearers, yet he did not open his mouth. He took it. He took the oppression. And why did he do that? He knew he was innocent. They really knew he was innocent. They were putting a false charge on him of sedition and blasphemy. But he kept silent because it was the will of his Father. The plan had been made in eternity past. He was being obedient. And it says, as it says in Philippians 2:8, obedient to the point of death, even death on the cross. So he kept silent. And I heard one pastor talking about seeing sheep being led to the shearer and to the slaughter. And when they get them in line, the first sheep's called the Judas sheep. And he said it is eerily silent. They just walk right to their death. So it's quite a stark passage, a little section in here. And it says, by oppression and judgment he was taken away. And as for his generation, who considered that he was cut off out of the land of the living? And of course, meaning he died. He suffered death again for the transgression of my people, to whom the stroke was due. So he died. His grave was assigned with wicked men. He died between two criminals. He died a criminal's death. He died actually, and this is something the first time I heard it really struck me. I said something last week about hearing how the God-man is God-man for eternity. At that point in time when I first heard that, really had an impact on me. Kind of knew this as well, but hearing someone say it so clearly that he died a sinner's death. We all know that. He did not die with the hope, the joy, you see how Stephen died and all the martyrs died. He died a sinner's death, a criminal's death, even though he was innocent. Yet he was with a rich man in his death, and we know Joseph of Arimathea donated a tomb. So the disgraceful burial that was coming to him, he actually ended up with a dignified burial. And why is this? Because he had done no violence, nor was there any deceit in his mouth. And this is one of the big aspects of what I want us to see here today. It's his sinlessness. All this work of the cross, everything he suffered, is to no avail if he's not the sinless sacrifice. For any other man to go to the cross to take our punishment would have not accomplished anything really for us. So his sinlessness is so important. And it's in his sinlessness and his sacrifice that the theological term imputation comes up, where his sinlessness is imputed to us. We are now viewed as sinless, as the righteousness of Christ in God's eyes. And that's such a vital aspect to our salvation and our justification. And conversely, it's a double imputation. Our sins imputed to him on the cross. I think we're more familiar with that, but we don't realize it's the double. I think it was Sproul said something about when he's asked what he is, he's an imputation. Of course, a lot of people aren't going to know what he's talking about, but that's what he's talking about. It's such a vital doctrine to understand and to grasp. Now as we move to verse 10, we see, but the Lord was pleased to crush him, putting him to grief. And that's kind of a start. The first time you read certain verses, they kind of strike you as odd. That sounds a little odd the first time you read it, but knowing that it's his will, his grace, his love for sinful man, that the plan was put in place from eternity past, he was pleased to go through with this. The Father was pleased to pour out his wrath, for his Son to suffer the work of the cross. The Son was pleased to go to the cross. Now he did say, could you take this cup from me? That is actually a holy request. Being a sinless being, never having been touched by sin, it's a holy request to not want that sin put on you. But it's not a moment of weakness by Christ. It's not him faltering in any way and going to the cross. That's kind of, I think, a misunderstood portion of Scripture. But this pleased to crush him, as we talked about last week, the divine nature, the human nature. It's the human nature that's going to die on the cross. The divine nature never left the Godhead. It's a Trinitarian agreement from eternity past. The Father, the redemptive plan for him to go to the cross, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit are in total agreement. He is in agreement. Then it says if he would render himself as a guilt offering. He renders himself. This is a priestly act. He is the priest, but he is also the sacrificial lamb, that Passover lamb for the Christian that I mentioned. He's rendering himself as a guilt offering. And if you look at guilt offerings in the Old Testament, it's a male lamb. There's an element of forgiveness of sins, but there's also an element of restitution involved. And then a very interesting thing takes place. He will see his offspring. We're talking about death, putting him to grief, rendering himself as a guilt offering. And then all of a sudden he will see his offspring. That's the resurrection. He will live again. He will rise from the dead. He will prolong his days. And the good pleasure of the Lord will prosper in his hand. Not only will he rise from the dead, but he will reign for eternity. And that's what's being spoken of here. As a result of the anguish of his soul, he will see it and be satisfied. This is toilsome labor is in the note in my Bible next to anguish. This work was not easy. This was brutal, as we've discussed. Not only in the physical brutality, the incurring God's wrath was even worse for him than the physical beating. And the physical beating was horrific. But taking on God's wrath was even just more weighty to him. And I think we could handle that part of it better because we're so accustomed to being filthy sinners. We're so accustomed to sin that I don't think it would have that same effect on us. He knew no sin, so it had to just be sheer misery for him to suffer that. But as a result of that anguish of his soul, he will see it and be satisfied. So it's complete. It's a finished work, and he said it is finished. It satisfies the wrath of God. It satisfies the penalty for sin. By his knowledge, now as I mentioned, this is that our, we, us confession of Israel and our confession as believers.